What do you think the Butcher thinks of the films of M. Night Shyamalan?
Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Josh, good to see you, man. Thank you for taking the time.
Thanks, Jake. Yeah.
There's a really quick shot in this movie I love that features a billboard for a movie called The Watchers,
yes,
directed by Shyamalan. And it stands to reason if Ishana is somewhere out there and trapped, that means M. Night Shyamalan is somewhere out there as well.
Yes.
What do you think the Butcher thinks of the films of M. Night Shyamalan?
I think he thinks that, you know, M. Night is a very clever guy, and maybe he has some secrets too, and maybe you'd like to meet him sometime. I think he'd be very impressed by M. Night.
Is he a theater goer? Do you think he goes to see the movie's opening weekend?
I don't know if he goes opening weekend, but I think he would definitely go and check out some movies. I think escapism is part of his purview. Like, that's part of his deal.
I feel like him watching Split would just be the most insane meta thing in the world.
I'm into that. Yeah, I've had a couple people ask questions about whether or not he would kind of like work in that universe, and I don't know. I mean, Cooper's a different entity, but I could see him watching the movie.
Just being a fan.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah.
I kind of want to flash back to the beginning of your career because I feel like you were exploding around the same time that he was. In '98, you had Faculty and Halloween. Then in '99, he had Sixth Sense, and then he had Unbreakable, and then you had Black Hawk Down and Pearl Harbor. I'm sort of curious, at that point in your career, what do you remember sort of thinking of this new talent who was coming up at the same time?
I loved his movies. I was a huge fan from the beginning, and when a friend of mine worked with him on a couple of movies and asked me if I wanted to come to a premiere of his, The Village, actually, here in New York. I was living in New York, and I came to the premiere, and I was able to meet him and his wife, and then they invited me to dinner afterward with the cast, and we talked a lot about movies, and he knew what I was doing, and I knew what he was doing, and I told him I was a huge fan, and if he ever wanted to work with me, I would love to work with him. And then 20 years went by, and he didn't call me.
So every time he puts a movie, because he puts out about one a year, you're looking and going, I could have done that.
He never asked me. He's like, I could be Dave Bautista. Knock at the cabin.
I could have knocked at the cabin.
Yeah, exactly.
I know how to knock.
Yeah, exactly. So he came when he came with this. I was immediately, obviously, interested in playing the role, but I didn't know what the role was because he just wanted to talk first. And then he sent the movie. Then he sent the script, and I was like, oh my god, this is going to be like a huge challenge. But I love a challenge.
Sure.
So like my interest in it kind of went up tenfold. But I would have done anything with Night, and hopefully we'll work together again on something entirely different. And I just love that he's got like this optimistic sort of explorative nature that I feel like most great directors have, and I hope I do as well. So.
You definitely do. August 6, 1999 was the release date for Sixth Sense, which means in a couple of days it'll be the 25th anniversary.
Oh, wow.
And I feel like that is, for movie fans, one of those definitive do you remember where you were moments. For some people it was I watched it on VHS. For some people it was my friend ruined it for me.
Right.
I was there opening day, lucky enough to be able to experience that. Do you remember when you first had that moment where he goes, he was dead the whole time?
Yeah, no. I remember I watched it at the Universal City Walk in Los Angeles. I was there shooting something. I can't remember what I was shooting, but it was just after I'd finished the couple of movies that you just mentioned, and was back in LA for something, but I don't live in LA, so I remember being at the Universal City Walk though and watching that movie, and it was like it's an amazing experience. But then being able, because like every once in a while there'll be a director that comes out of the gate and makes one amazing movie, and then there's like a slump for a long time. But then he did Unbreakable, and he did Signs, and he did The Village, and they were all unique, and they were all amazing, and he's just clearly one of the best original storytellers that we have.
And every time he comes out with a movie, it makes me grateful that he's here.
Yeah.
We're honestly, truly grateful. I'm a Chicago guy, so I have to talk to you about The Bear, which I think is the best show on TV.
Yeah.
I did not expect for you to walk out of that door onto that stoop. Like, that was a really cool, pleasant surprise. A stupid question. Did you film that scene in Chicago?
Yeah.
What was your experience like in our city?
Chicago's amazing. I grew up in Minnesota, so I grew up going down to Chicago if we wanted like a bigger city kind of experience. If we wanted to go see a baseball game or something like that. When Twins were going down, I'd go down there occasionally. And I've spent time. I worked in Chicago-ish once. I did a movie that was set in Chicago, but we shot most of it in Montreal. But then we were in Chicago, and then I went to go shoot this. And I knew Chris from way back, Chris Storer. And he asked me to come be a part of it, and it felt like the whole city was like, they had stories about the Bear, and they wanted the Bear to be successful. So I had a bunch of people ask me, well, didn't anybody take a picture of you while you were in Chicago, and like put two and two together? And I was like, I think the city's really protective of that show, and they wouldn't put it on social media. They were just happy they're happy to have the show there. And so, yeah, it was great. It was great to be a part of it for a minute.
I
So
gotta
much
say,
fun.
as an entertainment reporter, progressively making my way through season 3, I just kept going. I feel like this is an example of why I'm bad at my job. How did I not know that Josh was here? And I did like
No, it's good because you wouldn't want to be the person that ruins it, because
Sure.
it is fun. You know, it is fun to have these things kind of come out. The same sort of thing with Night's movies. You don't want to give too much away because it's about audience participation, and I want to see this with an audience, and I'm going to do that on Wednesday for the first time, and really getting a sense of how people kind of interact with the movies. It's great. It's a great idea.
And to the point, not giving anything away, I'll cut you loose on this. What is the worst someone? Because I hate people who ruin movies for people.
Yeah.
I remember in 8th grade, Ginny DiCostanzo ruining The Killer of Scream 3.
Oh, Ginny.
And I said, Ginny?
Yeah.
Ginny. It still stands with me. What is the most anyone's ever ruined a pop culture surprise for you?
Ooh, I don't know. I mean, I think I knew that Jack didn't get saved at the end of Titanic before I saw that movie, but that wasn't really like a surprise. People talk in our industry, and maybe you read the script, but like for me, it's about like how the craft of the making of the film, and I'm surprised constantly, not just by the subject matter of what Knight's doing, but how he's putting it together and why he's putting it together. And I think this film is a really unique experience, not just because of like whatever sort of fun thing that you find at the end of the movie, but it's more that like he's decided to make a thriller, like a throwback 90s thriller, contained sort of thing, but do it from like the antagonist perspective. It'd be like watching Die Hard from Hans Gruber's perspective, and like that's just an awesome thing to come up with. He's like one of the best kind of high concept filmmakers that has ever existed. I'm happy to be a part of it.
I just love that half of this movie is not in the trailer.
Yeah.
And I think that's the cool. Like there was a moment where we hit a halfway point, and I went, "Oh, I've seen now I don't know."
Yeah.
That's a very cool
Yeah,
feeling.
yeah,
Hey
yeah.
man, I'm a massive fan. Thank you for
Thank
always
you.
doing such great work
Oh,
and
thank
giving
you.
me plenty of questions to talk about. So
No,
I
really
your
appreciate
time.
it.
Thanks
Yeah,
very
yeah.
much.
Good
man.
to see you, man. Thank you. Yeah.
Any chance that we'll see more of you in season 4?
And the people mountain. Where we're going, we don't need roads.